Soldier is one of the strongest classes in TF2. He's easy to pick up and play effectively, but his insanely high skill ceiling makes him one of the hardest classes to truly master. Because of that, I've always found him a little intimidating, with almost no hours on the class. But today, I'm pushing myself harder than I ever have before, by giving myself only 24 hours to become the best soldier I can be. How am I going to do this? By getting 1,000 Gib kills in under 24 hours. This gives me just 24 hours to get an achievement that only 8.4% of all TF2 players have. Frags of our fathers. If you're not familiar, a Gib kill is when you blow an enemy up into a bunch of pieces, like these right here, with explosive projectiles like rockets or grenades. And trust me, getting 1,000 of these in a single day is no easy feat. Also, I've decided that if I don't complete this challenge in time, I have to shave my head. Now that you know the challenge, let's go over the rules. There are 4 rules we must follow in order to complete this challenge. Rule 1, I can only play a soldier until this achievement is unlocked, which means I am locked into playing soldier for the next 24 hours and can't switch classes, not even to take a break. Rule 2, once I commit to a loadout, I must use it for the next 100 Gibs. I also have to test every single rocket launcher at least once. Obviously, except for the rocket jumper, because that does no damage. Rule 3, no achievement or strange farming servers are allowed. Rule 4, as said before, I must complete the challenge in 24 hours or I have to shave my head. Now that we know the rules, let's jump into the challenge. Our first game of hour 1 was on Dust Bowl. All right, let's do this. Initially, I was pretty nervous about doing this challenge, as I didn't think it was going to even be remotely possible for me to complete it in 24 hours. But I somehow managed to rack up 7 kills very quickly in our first game. Oh, this might be number 1 here. Let's go. 2. Oh, that's 3. Okay, that's 4. 5. 6. Okay, I don't know how many that is. I think 7. I thought this was going to be hard, but based on how I'm doing right now, I guess not. Yeah, this didn't last too long. Not even 5 minutes later, I was constantly dying over and over again. My aim was so bad that I was even missing rockets on the easiest kills. Like, come on, what the hell is that? I eventually found myself spamming rockets to compensate for my terrible aim. But as you can imagine, that didn't really work out well either. After this, I began to die in really dumb ways, and the Gib kills were just becoming less common. I did notice, however, that random crits were going to be really helpful for this challenge, especially in tight spaces like hallways and choke points where there's going to be a lot of enemies huddled together in one spot. At the end of game 1, we had 18 kills. This game lasted about 20 minutes. Let's hope we can speed things up in our next couple of games. For game 2, we ended up on Lazarus, a King of the Hill map, and unfortunately on a map like this, I was easily overrun because my aim wasn't quite up to par just yet, especially against classes like the Scout, whose fast movement was really hard for me to predict with rockets. I ended round 1 of this game with 0 kills, which is definitely not a good sign for things to come. But I did figure out after this that I could use my shotgun to get enemies low before finishing them off with my rocket launcher. This was a nice change and could help me get a bunch of Gibs throughout the challenge. I just need to make sure that I'm actually finishing them off with the launcher instead of my shotgun. At the end of game 2, I had a total of 26 Gibs, meaning I only managed to get 8 Gibs total in that game alone. Game 3 wasn't much better either. I spent the first half of this game dying, and I wasn't really having a great time trying to get Gibs on this payload map. I thought that I could just spam rockets towards the payload and maybe get lucky and get myself a couple Gibs, but nah, that just simply wasn't going to happen. I also found myself running out of rockets really often. One thing I really need to improve is holding off on shooting until I know I can hit a target, instead of just spamming and hoping that something hits. Towards the end of this game, I did find a good spot to sit and rack up a few Gib kills, which helped me end out this game with 12 kills in total, bringing us to the end of hour 1 at a total of 38 Gibs. At this rate, it would take me over 25 hours to complete the challenge. Not to mention, we are now an hour down. So we have 23 hours left, and by the looks of things, I may end up having to shave my head. I hope I don't got like a weird shaped head or something. Hour 2, I was starting to notice a slight difference in my aim. I was getting a little better at predicting enemy movement, leading to me getting more Gib kills. I also found that dead ring or spy kills, even though they don't count as real kills, if they Gib, that counts towards the achievement, giving me more than one chance of getting a Gib if I can manage to kill them. Also, pyros were becoming less of a problem for me as I was getting better using my shotgun, which I was using to get them low before finishing them off with a final blow. I mean rocket. However, snipers were the one class I was going to have the most trouble with. I wasn't the greatest at rocket jumping just yet, but literally every time I got myself into the air, I was instantly shot by a sniper. Or if I was out in the open for more than 1 second, boom, headshot, dead. So that's one thing I need need to get a lot better at. Positioning. I also found myself getting lost with no purpose as soldier. Kind of like unsure of what I even need to do at times. And I think my positioning definitely has a role to play in this. I mentioned rocket jumping before. This is one thing I'm hoping to improve on throughout the challenge. Obviously, I know I'm here to get Gibs, but I always see soldiers jumping around the map and they make it look like so much fun. I want to be able to do that, and who knows, maybe it'll make me more efficient at getting kills. Around halfway into hour 2, I finally hit my first 2-in-1 Gib. The TwoFort, oh yeah, let's go. I've only pretty much been able to get 1 kill at a time up to this point, so this gave me hope for the future. Towards the end of hour 2, I was trying my hand a little more at rocket jumping. I do be blowing myself up quite a bit, but I think I'm making some progress. I do find myself getting into the air more often than before. Damn. But then I'm unfortunately left with 0 rockets left in my launcher. No amount of rockets. So it kind of just makes me look like an idiot once I get back down to the ground. I was also missing out on quite a few Gibs because people weren't exploding on kill. Oh, hit it. Ah, it didn't count though. This is something you will see throughout the video. And trust me when I say this, it annoys me a lot more than it annoys you. I ended hour 2 with 69 Gibs. Still not even close to 100 yet, but 69 is my favorite number. Over the next hour, I did notice I was getting slightly better at dealing with scouts. I found it a lot easier to aim at the ground where they're going to land, rather than trying to hit them in the air. And this definitely helped me die a little bit less to scouts in the future. After 3 hours on the class so far, I found that control points were probably my least favorite game mode to play as soldier. Everyone was really spread out throughout the entire map, and I really wasn't that great at 1v1s as soldier just yet, which I seem to get myself into a lot of those on control points. However, rocket spamming did start to work sometimes for me, so I guess that's a good thing. After 3.5 hours, I finally managed to hit my first 100 Gib kills. This wasn't really the greatest news to hear though. At this rate, it would take me another 31.5 hours to finish this challenge. So yeah, soon my head will be shining brighter than my future. With our first 100 Gib kills acquired, it was time for us to switch our loadout. For our next loadout, I went with the direct hit and the panic attack. Now, I know what you're thinking. How the hell am I going to use this direct hit with my aim being this bad? Well, that's actually exactly why I'm using it. To train my aim and hopefully make myself better at tracking enemy movement. Oh, and I'm also hoping that the 25% damage bonus will help me get some more Gib kills. As for the panic attack, well, that's just there for those situations when my aim with the launcher doesn't quite hold up. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of those. To no one's surprise, the first little while with this launcher was torture for me. I was finding it extremely hard to get any kills at all, unless I was right in the enemy's face. With this launcher, I was again finding it hard to get even more than 1 Gib per life. Even sometimes when shots look like they're gonna hit, they just don't. There is also times where I think I'm gonna get a Gib kill, but nope, just an assist. The direct hit, however, is actually really good at getting rid of NG nests, but for actually getting Gibs, yeah, it's not great for me. And of course, dealing with enemies who are airborne is a whole different story. By the end of hour 4, I was at a total of 112 kills. So at this rate, I had roughly 31.5 hours left until we hit 1,000 Gibs. Hour 5 was a little better with the direct hit. Eventually, I started getting into a little bit of a groove. I didn't hit any crazy clips or shots. I just put my head down and got to farming those Gib kills. I even decided to give TwoFort a try to see if I could speed things up. By the end of hour 5, we reached 150 Gibs. The instant respawn on these Scala servers really wasn't as much of a help as I thought it would be. Also, with TwoFort having a lot of choke points and corridors to shoot down, I thought I'd be getting a lot more kills, but I just wasn't. The main benefit of spawning so quick was definitely being able to work on my aim. With less time waiting on respawn timers, I could use that time to do some target practice on these TwoFort twerkers. I even managed to hit some pretty good combos using the direct hit, even surprising myself a little bit. I did find the direct hit easier to predict enemy movement with, which is weird to say, but I think it came down to the faster rocket speed. With 80% increase in projectile speed, it felt more like I was using some kind of weird rifle over using a rocket launcher, if that makes any sense. Like, it obviously looks like a rocket launcher, but the shooting... Okay, you get what I'm saying. Anyways, the more I used the launcher, the more improvements I was seeing. This, along with a higher damage output, actually helped me upping my kills this hour. However, I still wasn't great at hitting targets in the air. I did, though, find spawn camping pretty useful, but I only managed to do this like once or twice. On the note of improvements, my rocket jumping was starting to show some signs of actually looking half normal. I was able to direct myself better and even hit some decent airtime. Get it? Direct and hit. I spent the majority of hour 6 on TwoFort to see if it was faster than playing regular casual, but it wasn't a significant enough difference for me to only play TwoFort for the rest of the video. Unfortunately, I won't be subjecting myself to another 18 hours of TwoFort. Sorry, guys. I know how much you love this map. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Jimmy. Sitting there all day on these battlements, waiting for some poor soul to walk across your red dot. After 6 hours, we hit 200 Gibs. That means I managed to get 50 Gibs this hour, but I don't think it was because of TwoFort specifically. It definitely played a role, but I think this loadout that made me focus more on the fundamentals of what makes a good soldier player, and that's aim. I was seeing significant improvements with this loadout compared to before, that's for sure. However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, because at this rate, it would still take us 24 hours to finish this thing. I know, great. 24 hours, right? That's the challenge. No, we're 6 hours down and we only have 18 left. God, I hope we can speed things up. Now, since we're 200 Gibs down, it was time for us to switch our loadout. Loadout 3, I went with the airstrike, base jumper, and the shovel. I feel like I'm running out of ammo too often with other launchers, and the fact that I get more ammo on kill with the airstrike will be a nice bonus. So let's see how it turns out. For the next little bit, I went back to casual servers to really get the best experience I could with this loadout. My initial thoughts on this loadout is that it's actually pretty fun. I was having a really good time soaring through the air with a base jumper. It was also super nice to not have to direct hit people anymore. Even though the airstrike had a smaller blast radius than stock, it was still a welcome change. The 15% damage penalty from this launcher was definitely noticeable. Sometimes the airstrike's damage output felt too low, though its fun factor made up for this weakness. While I appreciated having extra ammo, I don't think the bonus rocket justified the damage reduction. Using this launcher, I was able to get more than one kill in a life more often than I was previously in the challenge, but that was probably because my aim was getting better as time went on. And not to mention, there is actual blast radius on these rockets. There were a couple maps that limited what I could do with this loadout. These were maps with less verticality, such as this area on Hoodoo, where I didn't really have much room to move around and couldn't stay in the air very long with a base jumper, making it hard to send a barrage of rockets down on enemies. 7 hours in, I reached 250 Gibs, a quarter of the way there with more than a quarter of the hours already behind us. Things are not looking good for me right now. Just over an hour into using this loadout, and I was already pretty sick of heavies shooting me out of the sky. I feel like every time I would round a corner ready to land some rockets, I would be faced with a heavy just stood there looking up, ready to blast me away. Not to mention, I feel like I didn't have enough rockets to kill them 90% of the time. But in saying this, I spent the majority of our previous hour jumping in the air, not realizing that it decreased my blast radius with this weapon. Now that I've realized this though, we are starting to see some progress with this loadout. But the more I use the loadout, the less of a fan I was becoming. Most of the time using this loadout, I have felt like a sitting duck. And I also feel like I'm leaving damage on the table with the 15% damage penalty that this rocket launcher has. And with damage being left on the table, this means I'm leaving Gibs on the table too. However, we do have some good news. Just before the end of hour 8, we hit 300 Gibs. Hour 9, we moved on to our next loadout. This loadout was the black box paired with the gunboats. Now, I know I've been complaining a lot about ammo before, but I need to test every launcher to make sure that I'm going to choose the best one for this challenge. I was also feeling like I didn't have enough health. I know, complaining about not having enough health when I'm playing a character that has almost 200 health. Boo-hoo. But hear me out. I'm not used to rocket jumping, so when firing all these rockets at my feet, I find my health dropping really fast. So I'm hoping that maybe the 20 plus health on attack from the black box will help with this, as well as the negative 60% blast damage from rocket jumps on the gunboats. About halfway through hour 9, I was actually liking the black box. It felt a lot more solid than the airstrike, and I felt like I was getting more damage more consistently, which is probably because the gun does more damage, but there was also some other factors that played into this. For example, I was getting better at rocket jumping into areas that gave me an advantage over enemies, like being on high ground so I can hit targets easier. However, I find myself forgetting that I can get health when I get an attack on an enemy, which would help me stay alive a lot longer, giving me more of a chance of getting these Gibs up. Spies have been a really nice target for me, by the way. Since some of them are really low health and they don't move all that quick, I was able to benefit from this quite often, as well as killing spies who use the dead ringer. Like mentioned before, if they don't die, but they Gib, it still counts towards the counter, giving us double the chance of getting a Gib from one single spy, making spy checking really worth it. Too bad I'm not great at that just yet as soldier. As you can see here, in hour 9, I did manage to get my best game yet, where I got 21 kills in a single game. I know, not great, especially for soldier, but give me a break. I've only been playing this class for like 9 hours. At the end of hour 9, we had gotten 375 kills, which is 75 Gibs in this hour alone. This is a big improvement from our previous hours. Let's hope we can continue this momentum. I was starting to become fonder of the gunboats the more use I got out of them. I feel like I can now rocket jump more often and not have to worry as much about losing my health, which makes playing soldier a lot more fun. Not to mention just having more health from this loadout, meaning I can get into fights more often. But unfortunately, things massively slowed down on hour 10, as I was only able to get 25 Gib kills this hour, bringing our total to 400 Gibs in 10 hours. To be honest, I think I just got a little carried away this hour. Seeing as my last hour was so good, I thought I had some room to do a little practice rocket jumping and maybe get some more flashy kills. Obviously, not focusing on Gib kills was a massive mistake. In saying that though, my rocket jumping has gotten a lot better. Take a look at this. Ooh. Ooh, not bad, not bad. At the rate we are going, if we can't pick up the pace, it will take another 15 hours to complete the challenge, taking us to a total of 25 hours. Time to lock in for hour 11. With 400 kills reached, it was time for us to switch to a new loadout. Oh, that's number 400. For this next loadout, we went with the Beggar's Bazooka and the Battalion's backup. This launcher took me a bit of time to get used to. Having to build up the rockets I need to kill an enemy was definitely a challenge to get my head around at first. It was hard to know how much rockets I had to build up before shooting at an enemy, and when I was supposed to let go and fire them, as well as not trying to damage myself in the process by loading them for too long. Oh, and not to mention how slow it felt to use. Waiting for the right amount of rockets to load in felt like it took forever, and then aiming in the right place after they were all loaded was a whole other thing. Also, rocket jumping was pretty much useless for me with this launcher. Oh my god. I was hoping that this would help me from getting distracted on jumping around the map and actually focus on getting some kills. But what wasn't going to be helpful was that I was now learning a new mechanic and having such a damn hard time with it. For our first hour with this launcher, I did not have a good time at all. It took us another hour to only get 25 Gib kills again, slowing us down for again another hour and not giving me much hope for the future of this challenge. And because we were dying so much more, we were also waiting for respawn timers more often than before. Sometimes with the Beggar's Bazooka, even hitting 3 rockets on some enemies wasn't enough to give them, making this pretty much the worst launcher I've used so far. I also never found myself getting enough damage to use the Battalion's backup, apart from this one clip here. Oh, let's go. This one. Boom, another. Boom, another. Ooh. Yeah! So with that, I spent the rest of hour 12 on TwoFort because this was the fastest way I found of getting Gibs with this launcher. By the end of hour 12, we only managed to get ourselves another 25 Gibs, bringing our total Gibs to 450. But for hour 13, we managed to speed things up a little, finishing at 500 Gibs, double our previous hour. Halfway through our goal of 1,000, but now an hour over our time limit. Not great. Not great at all. But at least I'm going to be able to get away from this launcher for our next loadout. Loadout 6 was the original and the stock shotgun. I wanted to go back to using the shotgun as a means to get enemies low before firing that final blow with my launcher to get a Gib kill. Initially with this new launcher, however, it did take me a few minutes to get used to the instant shooting again. It also made rocket jumping feel weird with the first few attempts I had at that. Eventually, I began to get the hang of this thing. And man, was it nice to have 4 rockets again. It has felt like forever since I've had this many. It's also kind of funny looking back because at the start of the challenge, I felt like 4 was nowhere near enough rockets for me. But now it almost feels like a luxury having this many. However, I would sometimes forget that I had more than 3 and just forget to shoot the last one. I was enjoying using the original a lot. Something about the launcher being in the center of the screen made everything feel a lot more seamless. I even noticed my aim getting better, leading to me getting Gibs more consistently. And I was finally able to get a few good clips too. Oh, what a shot. Remember how my goal with this launcher was to use the shotgun more? Yeah, well, for the first hour using this loadout, I completely forgot about this and pretty much neglected the shotgun. So I still have no idea whether or not this theory actually works, but we'll find out soon. By the end of hour 14, we managed to hit 550 Gibs. That's the same amount of Gibs as our previous hour, but probably the best performance we've had with the new launcher so far. For hour 15, I finally started using the shotgun more. This made getting Gibs a more common occurrence. Ooh, not bad. A lot of the time when killing enemies with my launcher, their body would go flying instead of turning into a million pieces. But when they were low in health and then I fired a rocket at them, it felt like they gibbed more often. However, there was sometimes I would accidentally kill an enemy with my shotgun before pulling out the launcher to finish them off. Spies were a big target for me this hour, and I think I was getting pretty lucky because most of them were low health whenever I came across them, which led to some very easy Gib kills. This made me spy check more often than I already was, which I was finally getting better at. I found my tracking of players movement with rockets was a lot better as well. I think having the launcher in the middle of the screen definitely played a big role in that. With all of these positives though, I still haven't managed to beat my best game yet of 21 kills. My closest so far was this game where I got 19 kills this hour. Overall, this loadout was a lot of fun to use, especially compared to the one we were using before this. I think this is my favorite loadout that we've used so far, but let's see if that's still going to be the case after our next loadout. At the end of hour 15, we hit 600 Gibs, and with that, it was time to switch to the Cow Mangler. We also paired this with the reserve shooter and the conch. The main upside I would say to the Cow Mangler is not needing ammo, which is super nice. Also, having the conch meant that I didn't have to go around looking for meds as much. Eliminating these two things hopefully will let me focus more on fighting and speed up our time to get these Gibs. My first thought on the loadout is that the Cow Mangler feels pretty strong, and it felt like I was getting Gibs more often with it, but this later changed. I will say that I was missing having random crits with this launcher, and the fact that it mini crits when it should fully crit an enemy is not great either. But by far its biggest problem is dealing with sentries with this thing. It does practically no damage to these damn things. My performance was getting worse after switching to this launcher. Like the other launchers we've used so far, it would just take some time for me to adjust to using this launcher. This unfortunately gave me no chance to use the rage mechanic with the conch in hour 16, and we ended the hour with 630 Gibs. We are getting even slower this late into the challenge. This is not looking good, and soon neither will my head. Back again to TwoFort, the trusty old place we go when things aren't quite going my way. I know what I said earlier in the video about not being here too often, but with this loadout, it really did speed things up for me a little bit. Also, one positive I did find was that the conch was really good at protecting me from Pyro's afterburn. Oh, no way. But the launcher, on the other hand, having no crits with this weapon made it feel really weak and made getting Gibs really slow. Random crits was a great way for me to get Gibs, but with the Cow Mangler, I can no longer reap those rewards. At the end of hour 17, we hit 675 Gibs. Speeding up a little bit with a 15 increase in Gibs this hour, not bad. Let's keep going. 30 minutes into hour 18, we hit 700 Gibs. Now that we've tested all the launchers, it was time for me to choose the launcher that I think would be the best to go with for the rest of the challenge. And my choice for this was the original. Getting back into it with my new loadout, the first thing I noticed right away was the random crits. It was so nice to have these back again. Just go random crit. And finally be able to get some kind of crits on enemies, other than some pesky mini crits. Speaking of crits, I managed to convince my lovely girlfriend to pocket me for the next little while. And instead of being an Uber medic, we went with the Crits Krieg to really maximize our chances of getting Gibs. And let me tell you, it was super useful.
Bro, I've got Uber.
Yeah, send it. No.
No. Go.
Oh, yeah. I got like 4. At the end of hour 18, we racked up 730 Gib kills. Hour 19, we continued with the same strats for a little while. Let's go. Let's go. I don't know how many that was. It was a lot. I was super happy to be able to use the same launcher now and really get used to something over the next little while. This also gave me a pretty good idea if we were improving or not based on our hourly performance, now that we were no longer changing weapons. I also managed to have my best game yet in hour 19, where I got 30 kills in a single match. However, my gameplay was still far from perfect. I was still missing shots and putting myself in some awkward positions at times. What? What was that? We were, to my surprise, still getting better though. Hour 19 was now up, and our total was 775 Gibs. 45 Gib kills in this hour alone. Not bad at all. The more time I spent with this launcher, the more confident I became with it. And my gameplay was starting to finally become more consistent too. I'm not sure how many people remember this, but there was one line from Lazy Purple's How It Feels to Play Soldier. I can't quite put my finger on what it was.
You have a rocket launcher, and you will never, ever stop improving with it.
Oh yeah, that. Well, that didn't quite feel true until 20 hours into this challenge. But now that I'm seeing some progress, man, did this class become fun to play. After 20 hours into this challenge, we hit 800 Gibs, giving us only 4 hours to get our next 200 kills. Now, with our track record, I don't know if this is going to be possible, but I will say that during this point in the challenge, things were starting to look a little bit better for us, as we were slowly increasing our Gibs as time went on with this loadout. After testing all the launchers, I can confidently say that the original is now 100% without a doubt my favorite launcher so far. The damage output I've had with this thing compared to the other launchers that we've used has been a night and day difference. Not to mention how nice it feels to have my launcher sitting in the middle of the screen. This made hitting shots with this thing a lot easier for me because the projectiles were coming from the center of the screen rather than the right hand side. This made predicting where a rocket was going to end up a lot easier. This was also a big contributor to us hitting more shots like this. Oh, what a shot. Holy shit. I also found a cool spot on Barn Blitz, which I racked up a few easy kills. Yeah!
Random crit!
2 kills! Let's go! This took us to the end of hour 21. With hour 21 now coming to a close, we were sitting at 860 Gibs. I know we can still do better than this though. In hour 22, things started to take a turn for the worst. I was dying a lot more and couldn't seem to find my footing again for some time. I think this came down to me becoming too overconfident yet again and trying things that I really had no business doing, like in this clip here. Oh, one more. Ah, we only got one. Dang. I will say that I'm missing having the conch with its constant heal. At the moment, it feels like I've got so much less health when I'm not being pocketed. But at this point, I just couldn't give up the extra damage I was able to output using the shotgun. At the end of hour 22, we managed to have a 20 Gib kill reduction since our previous hour, taking us to a total of 40 kills this hour and an overall total of 900 Gibs. So we now have only 2 hours to get 100 kills. All right, be honest with me. Which one of these bald people do I look the most like? I was never expecting what was going to happen in hour 23. Somehow the TF2 servers went down. Yep, you heard that right. No TF2 for me until this issue is resolved. I had no idea how long this was going to take. And at this point into the challenge, I couldn't just give up. We had come this far, only 100 kills away. So I sat there for almost 40 minutes refreshing my game over and over again, waiting to finally be able to matchmake again. Until we finally made it back in. 1 hour and 20 minutes left. And we have to get 100 kills. Not just 100 kills, 100 Gibs. Oh yeah, and I completely forgot. There was one launcher I still haven't tested yet. The Liberty launcher. I don't know how this one slipped through the cracks, but as per the rules of the challenge, I need to test every launcher. So on our final hour, not only are we behind in kills, we now need to get used to another launcher. Not to mention, it was almost 3 a.m. at this point. So if I was going to finish this challenge, I had to do it all by myself. No pocket medic or anything. I got back into the groove of things with our new launcher. And to be honest, it really didn't feel much different from the stock launcher. I know there was a damage penalty, but the extra rocket we have kind of made up for that, as well as the increased projectile speed and the negative 25% blast damage from rocket jumps. The Liberty launcher was actually starting to become my favorite launcher so far. I wish I found this thing sooner. With the extra rocket that the Liberty launcher had, I was able to get Gibs more often. I found firing into larger groups of enemies to be more beneficial than it was ever before. And because I had gotten used to using the shotgun with the original, I found the damage penalty on this launcher really wasn't much of a worry when fighting enemies one-on-one. For some reason, I think that all the factors leading to this point made me really lock in to finish this challenge. I was able to really pick up the rate of Gibs we were getting per hour. In the 20 minutes I had left of hour 23, I garnered a total of 40 Gibs, leaving us with only 60 Gibs to get in our final hour. This was it, the final hour. With 60 Gibs left to go and the Liberty launcher in hand, I knew it was now or never. The combination of pure exhaustion, desperation, and maybe even a little bit of newfound skill kicked in. Every rocket had to count. I found myself in a zone I didn't even know existed. The muscle memory of the past 23 hours took over, and before I knew it, the Gibs were racking up faster than ever. 20 Gibs. 35, 50. With just 10 minutes left on the clock, I needed 5 more Gibs. With time ticking down, it was looking more and more like I wasn't going to get this achievement in time. Until... Let's go! We did it! The achievement notification popped up. I did it! I went from a complete noob to achieving one of the hardest soldier achievements in the game. And you know what? I actually learned to love playing soldier along the way. And my hair is safe. But more importantly, I proved to myself that with enough dedication and maybe a little bit of sleep deprivation, anything is possible in TF2. So go out there and challenge yourself, ladies and gents. And if you want to see me do it again, here's the video on screen. Thanks for watching.